class, thanks for watching today. We are doing lesson 5.6, which is about using multiplicative inverse to solve equations. So what does that word multiplicative inverse really mean? Well, it's the reciprocal of a number, which is really the flip of a number. So it's like saying if I had 3 over 4, what's the flip of that? 4 over 3. So 4 over 3 would be called the multiplicative inverse. Now really, this is the product, which means multiplication. The product of a number and its multiplicative inverse equals 1. So like if I had the number 5 over 3, the flip of that is 3 over 5. Well, if I multiply across, I get 15 over 15, which is the number 1. So that's truly what it means, but in kind of quick terms, it just means the flip of a number. Now, this is going to be very, very helpful for you in the future when you want to solve equations. So I know it's been a while since we've talked about solving equations, but we're talking about solving equations today because we're going to be talking about fractions with equations. And I don't know about you, but taking a look at example 1, letter A, we have 3 over 5x times 15. And a lot of times, or a lot of people, when they see 3 over 5, that fraction part of this, they're like, ugh, and they might not like to solve this as much. But I'm showing you a method today that will make this problem a lot simpler to do and not really that bad if we use what's called the multiplicative inverse, which is what we talked about, the flip. So if I were to rewrite this equation, just so that I have some space to work, and now I'm going to take the fraction 3 over 5, and I'm going to multiply on both sides by the flip of this fraction, the multiplicative inverse. So the flip of 3 over 5 is 5 over 3. So I need to multiply both sides by that, 5 over 3. All right, the cool thing about this is that these two fractions right here actually cancel. Because 5 times 3 is 15, 3 times 5 is 15. 15 over 15 is 1. So on the left side of our equation, we just have x. Now on the right side of our equation, another way that I can write this 15 is the same as saying 15 over 1. 1 is like our hidden number in math. So that helps. Now we have two fractions multiplied by each other, which we did in one of our previous lessons. In like one of our previous lessons, we can go ahead and we can multiply across. And if we did that, we have 15 times 5, which is 75, and 1 times 3, which is 3. And then simplify from there. Another cool thing that we could do, that I'm going to do throughout this video, is I'm going to take a look at my diagonal numbers, like 15 and 3. Both of those can be divided by 3. So if I do 3 divided by 3, I get the number 1, and 15 divided by 3 is the number 5. I'm going to use those two numbers because it's going to be simpler math to do. So now we can go ahead and we can multiply across. 5 times 5 is 25. And 1 times 1 is 1. Well, 25 divided by 1 is just 25. All right, let's do the next one. So just like the last one, we need to get rid of that fraction. We can get rid of it by multiplying the reciprocal, which is the flip of that fraction on both sides. The best part about that, those two fractions cancel. So now we have 18 times 11 over 6, which is the same thing as saying 18 over 1. And just like before, I'm going to see, and I notice that 6 and 18 can be divided by 6. If I divide 18 by 6, I get 3. And 6 divided by 6 is 1. So now we have 3 times 11, which is 33. And on the bottom, we'd have 1 times 1, which is just 1. So I could write 33 over 1, or I know that 33 divided by 1 is just 33. So I have my answer. Same thing for the next one. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. So I'm multiplying by the reciprocal of negative 7 over 13, which is 13 over negative 7. Those two fractions cancel. So on the right side we have x, and on the left side we can simplify just like we have been. Let's see, negative 7 and 28 can both be divided by 7. If we divide them by 7, this is what we get. So now we have 13 times 4, which is 52. And negative 1 times negative 1 is a negative 1 times 1, is a negative 1. 52 divided by negative 1 is negative 52. Okay, letter D. I'm noticing with letter D that we have this negative 10 here, and we'll want to get rid of that first before we do anything else. Now we can do that because the opposite of negative 10 is positive 10, plus 10. So if we do that on both sides, and I know it's been a while since we've solved the equation, so it might take us a moment to kind of get back into this. We have 14 plus 10, which is 24. All right, and then now it looks just like letters A, B, and C. How can we get rid of that negative 2/3? We can multiply by the reciprocal. So these two fractions cancel, and we will want to write this as 24 over 1. Let's see if there's anything that we can simplify this by. Let's see, this can be divided by 2, which is negative 1, and this can be divided by 2, which is 12. 12 times 3 is 36, and 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. So 36 divided by negative 1 is just negative 36. Okay, letter E. Again, we want to get rid of this plus 3/4 first. If there's ever a constant by itself on the same side as the x, my tip to you is to try to get rid of it first. Try to undo it first. And I want to encourage you that if you need to pause this video or rewatch any of this, or even watch this as you're doing your assignment so that you can pause it, you can rewatch something, please do that, okay? You don't have to just watch this whole video just once and be done with it, right? You can use it to really help you get through your assignment for the day, okay? So I know I'm going to minus 3/4 on both sides, because what's the opposite of plus 3/4? Minus 3/4. So then those two cancel. Now we have negative 7 over 12x on the left equals, and now we have to do 1/2 minus 3/4. Now if you remember from earlier in chapter 5, we cannot currently subtract these two because the denominators are not the same. 2 and 4 are not the same. Now I do know that this one right here, I can quickly get it into the denominator of a 4. I can do that by multiplying by 2. So if I multiply the bottom by 2, I also have to multiply the top by 2. 2 times 1 is 2. Alright, so now we have 2 minus 3, which is negative 1. And then the 4 just stays the same on the bottom. Okay, so now we have ones just like the previous ones. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal. And these two fractions will cancel. So now we have x is equal to, and let's again do that trick to see if anything can be simplified. I'm noticing that the 4 and the 12 can both be divided by 4. If I divide them by 4, this is what I get. So now we have negative 1 times 3, which is negative 3. and 1 times negative 7 is negative 7. And negative divided by negative is a positive. Okay, awesome. Letter F, we have one more here. In order to get rid of that plus 5/9, we want a minus 5/9 on both sides so that those cancel. So now we have 2 over 3x equals, now we have to do some math here. 4 over 5, so we have 4 over 5, I'm going to write this down below. 4 over 5 minus 5 over 9. Okay, we have to think back to how we subtracted when we had different denominators. We have to multiply this one. I'm going to choose to have a denominator of 45 on the bottom. Now, why would I do this? Well, because this first fraction, if I times it by the 9 here, if I times both the top and the bottom by 9, 9 times 5 is 45. That's where that bottom comes from. And 9 times 4 on the top is 36. Now, if I take this second fraction and multiply it by this 5, okay, we have 5 times 9, which is 45. So that's where they get the same bottom number. So we're multiplying this by 5, and then 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, so now we have 36 minus 25, which is 11. So we get 11 over 45. Okay, and then we're going to multiply both sides by that reciprocal, by that multiplicative inverse, which is 3 over 2. So those cancel. Let's see if we can do our trick. 3 and 45 can both be divisible by 3. Let's see, 45 divided by 3 is 15. Okay, so now we have x is equal to 11 times 1 is 11, and 15 times 2 is 30. There we go. X is equal to 11 over 30. All right, example 2 is our last one here. It says the height of a certain Norway spruce is 10 feet. If the tree's height grows 2.5 feet per year, find how long it will take the tree to reach a height of 25 feet. So, if we can think about this in a picture here, the tree is a certain height. It's currently 10 feet. Okay? Now, each year it's going to grow a certain amount. We don't know how many years it's going to grow, but after a certain number of years, it's going to be 25 feet tall. All right, so we originally have this 10 feet. Now we're going to add however much it's growing, so like that growth rate, times however many years to get our final answer of 25 feet. So what this looks like in kind of a word equation is we have our current height plus our growth rate. So that means how much it's growing, and then times the number of years. Which is really what we're trying to find. We don't know that yet. And then that's going to equal our new height. Okay, so let's put some numbers in here. Our current height, we know it's already 12 feet, plus our growth rate. It's growing at a rate of 2.5 feet per year. 2.5 is the same thing as saying 2.5. I'm just going to write a fraction, a decimal, because it's quicker. It's a little bit easier. Number of years, we don't know how many years. Okay, and then, you know what, I'm realizing, sorry about that, I'm going to back up. I personally, to be honest, would write this as 2.5x, but because this example is all talking about multiplicative inverse, today's notes, I am going to keep this as 2.5. Sorry for that mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, right? Just for the sake of our learning objective for today, I'll keep it as 2.5. Okay, and then our new height is going to be 25 feet. So this should look very similar to like letters D, E, and F. Okay, solving for x, we want to first get rid of the constant on both sides. And so here's the split. Here's the equal sign, so here's the left side and the right side. So 10 minus 10 is 0. So now we have 2.5x equals, and 25 minus 10 is 15. Okay, now 2.5 is the same thing, if I want to write this as an improper, as saying 2 times 2, which is 4, plus 1 is 5 over 2. So I'm just going to rewrite this as 5 over 2x equals 15. And now we can multiply by our reciprocal so that those cancel. It's like saying 15 over 1. And I notice here that both 5 and 15 can be divided by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. So now we have 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. So x is equal to 6. Now keep in mind, this is a word problem. We were trying to find the number of years. So that means it will take 6 years for the tree to be 25 feet tall. We must have that years in our answer. Okay, this was lesson 5.6. Thank you so much for watching.